Well, welcome to our second installment of On Your Lot with Scott. Today I'm here with one of our construction managers, Ryan Logan, and we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about site development costs today. So I'd like to introduce Ryan.
It's all right. I've been called Logan before.
Yeah.
I go by either.
Yeah. So Ryan, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself? Just tell us, just how you came to be where you're at with ICI.
Absolutely. So it actually goes back several years. I started with a production home builder. And I started off in warranty and really enjoyed the industry and just saw myself wanting to build. And so I worked myself up there and worked there probably about 13 years. So I've been in the industry total about 21 years. But I came to ICI back in 2019 as a superintendent and really loved the product, loved the culture, loved just everything about the company, and wanted to elevate it. And manage. And I also want to get into the on your lot. There's just a different aspect of it and really enjoy it. So been with the company 6 years, been doing on your lot now for about 2 years. And
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of experience, 21 years of experience just in the construction realm and being around houses, whether it was a warranty or whether construction,
right.
It's just knowledge you can rely on. And more importantly, the customers can rely on you because
right.
You have that knowledge.
Yeah, warranty is just as important as building the home, right? How we take care of the customer, not only during the build, but even after closing.
Having that perspective too helps you build better, probably knowing what problems you had to look for in the past.
Yeah, that's right. It helps you better the process and
right.
understand things.
Absolutely. So today, I deal with a lot of customers who are really just have never built on their lot before, and they're thinking about buying a lot. And really, like, what we want to talk about first is like, what are the first steps somebody should do when they buy that lot?
Well, really is just finding the right team, finding the right organization that you can trust.
Yeah.
I think ICI stands above the rest because you talk to yourself, Scott, that helps you go through the process. We have a CAD department that you can customize your home. We have so many departments and teams that are with the buyer along the way.
Yeah, that is one of the huge aspects of ICI, right? Is that when you come to us, you really just get an entire team of people. All the way from
an army almost.
Right, exactly, right. All the way from the sales associate that's going to help you through the entire build process. They're going to be there as your lifeline, as your concierge, as I tell them sometimes, for the entire process, but all the way through to an architect. We have an in-house architect that if there's something custom about your plan that needs to be drawn or you need to do a full custom design, you can sit with that architect, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I think you're right. The first thing is really find a team that can support your dream, right?
That's right.
Support what you want to do on that piece of property. Commonly, the first thing I tell people when they come in is to say, hey, what we really need to do our best ability to estimate site costs is we need a survey, we need soil tests, and we can work with you on helping you order those. We on your lot actually even give you a credit if you come and do it with us. So I always encourage people, first thing is call us and let us help you. Give you a little guidance. That's that first contact, those estimates we do at the site. Those are free things that we're doing to help educate you as the buyer, as you as the landowner, to try so you have an idea of what the path is to where you're trying to get to the dream you're trying to get to.
I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about how do we determine, how do we determine a lot is buildable? It's not really, I think, a great way to say it, right? It's really more like, how do we make a lot buildable, right? What things do we look at to consider to say, because not all lots are created equal, right?
That's right. They're all different in their own ways, for sure.
So talk about a couple of the things that as builders, you guys look at when you're looking at a lot. It doesn't even necessarily have to be an on your lot situation, but what things are important to you guys? People think you just level off the land and then that's it, and you just kind of move forward. But that's really not completely what we're looking at first, right?
we go way deeper than that, on the first initial walk on that lot. So we're always looking for utilities, right? Are there city utilities on site, or if they're not, so that's additional cost. If we have to have a well, private well, a septic system, or whatever the case.
And we're big on transparency, so we want the customer, the owner of that land, to know, hey, here are the things about your property, which is another reason why a lot of times we see if you're looking at a piece of land, even if you haven't bought it yet, call us. Let us talk you through some of that. So you can use that information we're providing you either to negotiate the price, because there's going to be some development costs that are going into it, or so that you can go into that purchase of that land
knowing everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think one thing that sets us apart too in this market is we're the biggest home builder and most recognized home builder in Volusia County.
Mm-hmm.
We have built all over Flagler, all over Volusia, and
with award-winning plans.
Award-winning plans,
Yes.
right? And so, but it goes deeper than that, right? So our knowledge of the land, the surrounding areas, just of everything, we probably have more knowledge than most other custom home builders that build on your land. So,
I've yet to run into a time where I haven't called Gene or one of you guys and say, hey, this is where my newest customer wants to build their home. And I haven't heard immediately, oh, we built one right down the street.
Always.
We're right around the corner.
Always. Right? Yeah. And so I think that gives us an advantage to help the customer understand what a lot costs, what challenges there may be to buy that lot. But some of the things we look for again is utilities, drainage. Drainage is a big one.
Yeah. It's becoming even more important these days, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that. We're looking at topography of the land, how heavily treed the lot is, whether it's trees, palmetto, how dense that vegetation is.
And what we're considering there too isn't just necessarily what needs to be removed, but it's often we're considering what can be kept, right? Because keeping trees is cheaper than taking them down and then replacing them.
That's right.
People don't understand a lot of times that they think I could just level all the trees on a property because they want an open space or they want their lot to be open. But we municipalities take it real serious about protecting the environment and protecting trees. So if you take certain trees down, they'll require you to put a certain amount of trees of the same sort back.
That's exactly right. Yeah, for every acre you have so many inches of tree credits that either have to remain or be put back on that lot. So we always try to encourage the customer to save as many trees as possible that are not in the building limits. Whether it's for the pool, the driveway, the house, we want to preserve as much as we can. And we actually, we meet the customer on that lot and go over their survey with those trees and educate them and let them tell us, what they want to.
Yeah, and that's an important part you just brought up about surveys. Like, not all surveys are created equal, right? I have people that come in the door often and they think, oh, I have a survey already. But then what they provide to me is really just a boundary survey.
Right, it's the bare minimum.
Right, it's the absolute bare minimum. They felt like they got a great deal on it, and they did get a great deal on it, right? But the reality is when we order a survey, we order so much more than just that. We need the finished floor elevations of any surrounding homes. We need the topography of the land. We need trees to be marked and surveyed so that we can. And the purpose of doing all that is that as we move forward towards permitting, as you would be better to speak to, is the municipalities require that of us because they need to know what was there before we started to ensure that we're staying in line as a builder, right? So we're doing our part.
I agree, and you hit the nail on the head. It's all about the survey. The start of any good home is the survey, the quality of the survey, and the more detailed information that we can get on that survey, we can give better visibility to that customer on what to expect.
Right. Yeah, that's where the transparency starts, right? Because everything before getting that quality survey is really just our best estimates, which we're really good at because we have folks like you that have 21 plus years of experience. We have Gene that's 34 plus years of experience. William's got 25 plus years experience. So we have folks that are really good, and we find that their numbers are almost spot on when they make those estimates. But there are things that are just unknown. We can't see what's under the ground, right? Soil test is important. We need to know, right? We need to know, do we need to remove something from that land and then put fill back? And when we put that fill back, we need to make sure that it's compacted and tested, and it will support your foundation, right? And that all starts with a survey and soil test.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the key right there. Yeah.
So this one you guys do on every build, but we'll just talk about some common site preparation tasks that you guys do. So what is it like? What's kind of the first steps as you're going to clear for a pad and build a pad up and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So again, it's all about environmental, right? So we want to protect the surrounding areas. So we're going to put up a silt fence barricade just to maintain any drainage disturbance on that land. So that's going to be the first thing. The second thing is we want to make sure that there are no turtles, right? Again, we're environmental friendly, and the municipalities want to make sure of that, which should have been done on the get-go. But once we've determined all that, we have a good understanding, we're clear to go, then we're going to bring some big machinery in, and we are going to knock whatever trees down we need to, save as many as we need to save, right? And we're going to get all the vegetation out of there. We're going to go at the next level. We're going to bring a big root rake in. We're going to make sure there is absolutely no vegetation left on that site, because we don't want to have any decomposition in the future, right? Because that could relate to settlement issues.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing, is having the right trade partners. Again, our trade partners are 20 plus years with us. They know what we want, what our expectations are, and our quality. So that's going to be the first thing, is really just getting everything off that lot, root raking it multiple times, and then we're going to compact that land. And then from there, we're going to get it surveyed.
And what you said is important, right, about those trade partners, because you don't keep a trade partner for 20 plus years just because you're buddies, right? Like you keep them for that long because they meet the expectations required to build these beautiful homes, right? Because we don't want to build a home that sinks into the ground, right? We don't want to build a home that falls apart, right? That's not our goal.
We're going to build a home that
lasts forever, right?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry though. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, just on the site prep is really just, again, making sure all of the any vegetation, anything that can decompose is fully removed off that lot, and then we're going to get it surveyed. And then again, that's the critical point right there. Is we've already done the due diligence with the customers, with our surveyor, in-house surveyor, well, not in-house, our trade partner,
right?
That has given us the great detailed wealth of information that we need to ensure accuracy of finished floor, accuracy of any easements, setbacks, and so on and so forth.
And you brought up another great point about surveys, is that often, like we just talked about, because they're not created equally, they're not invoiced equally either sometimes, right? So sometimes you're just paying for a boundary survey. In our case, the reason why we give a credit back for surveys and soils is because we're trying to cover the costs that we know we would have to pay anyways, normally. And so that surveyor, when they come out and do that initial survey that gives us that information for the estimates, they are also doing these different surveys throughout the build to make sure that everything that we plan is staying on track and it's accurate, recording and it's accurate. Yes,
that's right.
And that's a very, very critical part of the process.
It really is. I mean, the quality of the surveyor is much like them choosing the builder, the quality of the builder, right?
Absolutely.
So they have to stand behind their product and what they're going to do. And there's been instances, and where surveyors make mistakes, and so we make sure. Again, our trade partner has been with us since inception, almost 40 years. Like it's just unbelievable that the partnerships that we have.
Yeah. So next thing we're going to talk about is setbacks and easements.
Yeah, we just kind of hit that.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Yeah. So it's important to have those things outlined and set apart on surveys. But I think it's funny. I shouldn't say funny, but I'm never too shocked when somebody comes in and always thinks their side setbacks are like 5 feet, right? Yeah. People realize like how setbacks change so much by municipality, and probably on the sales end, we deal with this a little bit more on the front end than you guys. Obviously, you guys have to know that. It has to be in the plan. We go through this process as a team, evaluating the setbacks, researching and finding out not just what the city, or I should say municipality, because sometimes it's the county government that sets those setbacks or easements. We discover those, but then we have to go in many of our neighborhoods that we build in on your lot. There are HOAs, right? And sometimes those HOAs have additional setback requirements that we have to follow. Right. And so there's this level of research that we do on the front end. We pass it to the CAD team. They do lot fit. Inevitably, that gets passed down the road to our permit team, and then ultimately over to you guys, right? Because we the whole time are making sure that our build is going to be within the parameters that we believe will be approved by the municipality. And so have you seen anything? What's the craziest easement you've ever seen? Can you think of one?
Well, I mean, nothing really too crazy. I mean, most properties will have some sort of utility right-of-way easement along the front. I've seen some drainage easements in the back before, but all those, we need to know about those. Right. And again, I think the common theme we're going to keep hearing today, survey. Survey. It goes back to the survey,
absolutely.
The quality of the survey.
And people have a hard time hearing that, right? They like, oh, I got to pay for this thing. But you do. You got to get educated about what you have as that piece of land so you can build a plan around it.
And I'm a firm believer, and I'll continue to echo it throughout this. Once we know what all those easements are, what the setbacks are, we've understood what the HOA setbacks are, then that gives us ammunition to go back to the potential customers and build them and design their dream home that will fit on that lot.
Right. And that's what you get with us, right? You get that team of people that are looking out for you. They're finding the research. They're double checking the research because we've found that too. We've had information given to us that was inaccurate from other surveyors, and we've had to go dig into that and find those things. And that's how we run those things down and try to make people's dreams happen.
That's right. Yeah, we don't want to get so far along the process and then there's we didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
We want to be full transparency.
Can we just talk about a little bit like how the slope of or the topography of land will affect kind of the building? What are the ways we build to try to handle those types of issues?
So, it really depends on how the house is situated on that lot. So meaning how much percentage of total lot coverage is that house going to take? Because that can, and then how high is the house going to sit? We typically would like to go at a minimum, 18 to 24 inches above the crown of the road. We can typically get great drainage, and that should align with any neighboring properties.
Which 24 inches is double what code requires, right? So that's a good thing to point out that as a builder, we chose, we try to use best practices, not necessarily code, right? Code's designed to be minimally restrictive.
Codes are always minimum requirements.
Right, exactly. So, but we know from our 45 years of experience, there's a way to do things where things last.
That's right.
And there's a way to do things where we're protecting your investment that we need to do. And that's why we do them.
Yeah, so once we have that lot fit and understand, again, the coverage of the home on that lot, and then we see the topography of that lot, there's several different ways, depending on the elevation of the finished floor, that we can go about that. So again, if some of the lots we build on are extremely large, where we can just bring in enough filter to get the elevation of the finished floor, and then we can properly slope and create great drainage, right? Drainage is another big thing that we're very aware and cognizant of, is we want to maintain that drainage on our lot. We don't ever want to run up on another lot.
Absolutely.
If we're building on some of the tighter lots, which we tend to do, land is definitely getting harder, bigger land, harder to find. Depending on the topography, we would option for a stem wall. And then that will give us our elevation, and then we can kind of lower that grade if we need to and still make the drainage still work. So those are some of the things.
And I think you made a good you really showed a difference there in your conversation. Like, there's a big difference between building on a 10-acre lot versus building on a 40 foot by exactly, right? So the smaller it gets, the more you have to plan for that topography. That's because you're going to have to do things like deepen footers or stem walls, and you're going to have a plan going through that. But our team's here to look at that. We estimate those things, and as we go through the permitting process and even on into the build process, if those things change or we have other information that makes us reconsider, we either go up or down based on that. We either go to a wider footing if we need to, or if it doesn't need it, then we go back to the regular footer. Or we may have to say, hey, we need a stem wall here. It's just it's what's required at this point. It's a topography.
And just to piggyback on what you just said, is that's not an on the fly decision that we make. That's something that we bring to the customer based on our experience, and then once we're building, that we want to get their buy-in and their weigh-in.
Absolutely.
Right? First of all, we want to get their weigh-in because everybody has an opinion and a comment, and then we all need to agree and have buy-in on it, and then make that decision and go from there. Because it could affect additional lot costs up or down.
Yeah. And that goes back to our goal of transparency too, right?
100%.
Like, we don't want to just come to you one day and say, hey, we did this last week on your property.
Yeah, you owe us $5,000.
Yeah, that's not how we operate.
That's not us. No,
for sure. What do you think is the most surprising cost that maybe a landowner's not prepared for? When I'm talking about your novice landowner, right? Like somebody who's never bought and built on a land before. What do you think the biggest shock is that you could prepare them for today?
So I have experience in this personally. I bought a lot, a tree lot, and it was an acre lot, and I thought I knew everything just by looking at it, and there's existing homes right there. And so I did a survey, I did a boundary, but I didn't do a tree survey because I could see the trees, right? And I feel like I'm experienced, I know everything.
Yeah.
I did not do a soil test because there's homes built there. You assume all this stuff. And so when I started clearing the property, I noticed it was really wet, a lot wetter than I thought. I only budgeted for 40 loads of dirt. I didn't realize that it dropped off in the back, and I ended up bringing 90 loads of dirt. So those can be big surprises.
Yeah.
So how do you not have those surprises? Echoing the survey.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So So
trees are really good at hiding
trees,
elevation, right?
They really are.
Yeah, when you're looking at it, you're like, it just seems like it's a forest straight through, but you don't realize 10 feet back, it just drops down. The trees just kept growing. That's why it looks like it just keeps going.
And when you have a very heavily dense lot, you can't even navigate or walk it. So,
Right.
So again, going back to the survey, right? We don't want to have those surprises to the customer, but some of the biggest ones that could really take role is there could be protected wildlife, right? There could be eagles in a nest. There could be gopher turtles. Those are very, very expensive to relocate and rehome and get permits for, if you can.
Right.
Some may say no. We could have muck underneath that soil, right? Until you start digging down, you wouldn't know, and that could be a very expensive a cost. I can give you an example. We built for a customer. Luckily, we did a soils test, but they had muck on their land. So we cleared the lot, and we had to go. Once we cleared it and got all the vegetation off, we had to excavate 4 feet of muck out. We had to bring in 2 feet of compacted 57 stone, and then backfill structural fill dirt every 12-inch lifts.
And in each of those 12-inch lifts, we're testing the compaction, right?
That's right.
And that's what people forget. It's not as simple as just dumping dirt, right?
Right.
You know, we're leveling that off, we're compacting it, then we have an engineer, an independent engineer come in and test that and say, hey, can this support a structure?
Yeah. So really, you know, those are some of the biggest expenses that could be unforeseen if a quality survey is not done and a soils test is not done. A survey and a soils test will uncover, I would say, probably 90% of that stuff. And there's very little unknowns, but there always could be somewhat of an unknown, not, you know, once you get going.
Yeah. So and we try to best educate ourselves and the customer, right? But there, like you said, there are things that are going to come up during a build.
There could be.
We try to plan for that as we go. I think one of the things, just to kind of piggyback off of what you said, is that very much like when you buy a wooded lot, the average person looks at a wooded lot and they just see trees, right?
Yeah.
But what they don't see often is wetlands, or where there might be a conservation easement, because maybe it abuts, they think, oh, this is great, there's a state park behind me and nobody will ever build behind me. But, you know, I've run into that before where we've had, okay, now you have a 50-foot of your property you can't build on.
Yeah, after your lot you thought is
exactly.
unusable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and again, echoing back to, that's why there's things that when you look at a lot, you just can't see. But that's why you go back to qualified professionals to be able to get the survey information, to get the soils tests. And if you come to us as a builder at ICI, we have a team of people that can do that for you. We have vendors that have done this for decades that we partner with, that we can set you up with. We can make it a very smooth process. We do this every day for folks. And even beforehand, it's not like we're just going to sign you up for a survey. We can go out, look at your property, tell you what we feel like are going to be some of the challenges for your property. Because like we talked about, not all lots are the same, for sure. They're all a little different. That's also why we don't build site costs into our base price, right? Because if we had to plan for every contingency on lots, our price would be so astronomical that nobody'd be able to build a house. So why would we do that, right? So, and honestly, that wouldn't even be fair, right? Because many folks don't need that level of site development on an on-your-lot build. So they'd be paying for something that somebody else is getting to average it out, right? And it just wouldn't be right.
It would not be right, yeah. And you know, one thing too that sets us apart on the due diligence that we do is, and sets us apart from most builders that do on your lots or on your lands as custom, is we don't have a cost escalator built in, right? So we don't have an escalation clause, right? Where a lot of builders do. So if they go and say, oh, the price of lumber just happened to spike 10%, they're going to go back to the buyer and say, hey, you owe me an additional 10%, but not ICI.
Right.
And that goes back to our partnerships and just the team of professionals that we have.
And our process, right?
And our process.
We've designed our process to protect us and the customer from those types of escalations. Sometimes it doesn't, and we just eat the cost. But we do our best to not do that. And obviously, we've been around for 45 years. So
we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere.
So, yeah. Well, you know, is there anything else, Ryan, that you think you can add about ICI's process that really just sets us apart from other builders? I mean, you just hit one on the head about no escalation clause in our structural options. And I think transparency really sets us apart. We really just try to line item everything so you see what you're paying for, so that it's not this this, oh, yeah, we can do that, and here's just this random number that somebody's picked and said, yeah, all that's included in there.
Mm-hmm.
We break it down for you. If it's something on a site cost that's going to be an allowance where we know, hey, we don't have all the information yet. Let's say we don't have soil tests back yet.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that's denoted in the contract that it's an allowance, it's adjustable, so that the customer knows they're planning to have that money set aside
Mm-hmm.
for it. And if they spend less, they get it back.
That's right.
If they spend a little bit more, we reconcile up to three times
Up to 3 times
in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, that way they're educated throughout the whole build. We don't wait till the end and be like, oh, by the way, remember a few months ago when we were building the pad, we spent X amount of dollars and here it is.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So you're informed throughout the process. We're in contact with you the whole entire time. And I just talk a lot, but I want to hear from you. Do you have anything else you think that just sets us apart?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that are just really key things and that we do is, one is we talked about the team of professionals and the support that the customer gets, not only from inception and lot cost, but once we go to contract and we even start the build, right? The team doesn't go anywhere. So that customer has full support of you, Scott, with sales, the builder, myself as a construction manager, and even our design center. Like, we are at the customer's, we're their right hand. So at any time they have a question throughout the build, it's not like, Scott, okay, I sold it. Design center, you're passing the torch.
Yeah,
Design center says, okay, I'm done permitting, I pass the torch. The torch really is never passed.
Right.
We all carry that torch to the very end.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I want to hit on is the very end, our warranty. We stand behind our product. The builder that built your home on your lot is also the same person that's going to warranty that home through the 210 warranty that we have. So I think that
that's a big part too. I mean, that when you build a custom home, which on your lot, there's a lot of them that are very custom. It's important that builder's there to support that through the warranty process.
That's right, and the builder and the customer have that relationship, right? They've been together for the last 6 months to a year, however long that build's going to take, and they just have that. There's a valuable relationship there, so that's why we feel it's important that yes, we do have a warranty team, but on your lot, it's the next level, right? And we want that builder to stay with that customer, and I think really that has helped us with repeat business on your lot customers as well.
For sure.
So
yeah, I had a great experience the other day. I called somebody thinking that they had a lot and they wanted to build. Turns out we had already built their home like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we spent 15 minutes together talking on the phone about how great their experience was.
Right.
And to have that, they purposely answered the phones. They saw it was ICI. They went out of their way to tell me about their experience. And we hear that a lot from our customers. And that's where that referral comes in, right?
Yeah.
We want that message to get out there because it's a great message. It makes us feel good, right?
It is. So, I mean, again, ICI is definitely the number one rated home builder in Volusia County, numerous awards that we've got in Volusia County. So to me, it only makes sense.
Yeah, great. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for
Absolutely.
spending the afternoon or the morning with us and talking about some of the stuff. It's really important it's important to us to educate the public about that. That's why I started this series of On Your Lot with Scott. It's just to try to kind of push out little bits of information. Look forward to working with you on some of the builds in the future. And of course, hopefully maybe we come back and we'll do another session about some other topic.
Yeah, I would love it.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.